The Amazfit T-Rex 3 has been out since September and it has definitely made some waves since its debut. This watch launched almost immediately after the long anticipated Garmin Fenix 8 with a very similar spec sheet and at a quarter of the price. Yep, you heard that right. I've had this watch on my wrist for almost a month now and I've put it through its paces. I am shocked at how this watch has performed and I think you will be too. Okay, I want to start with a quick overview of the watch. Now, I already did an early impressions video, so my overview here will be very brief. If you want that information more in depth, then be sure to check out that video before you go any further. If you've already seen that and want to skip to the watch performance and my impressions, then please use the chapters I've included to find the section you're most interested in. Okay, so in the box, you're going to be getting your watch, your charging puck that connects to a USB-C wire. Wire is not included in the box. You're going to get some manuals that don't really have much information. You're going to get a tool to remove the proprietary screws that serve as pins for the watch band, as well as adapters that allow any standard 22mm quick fit band to be used. Now you can see the watch has a distinct octagon shaped body. It's constructed fully out of polymer, has stainless steel bezel, and comes with either a black or red nylon band depending on the version you get. It weighs in at 69 grams, including the band. A few key specs to call out here are the 2000 nits of brightness on the display, which is as bright as the Apple Watch Series 10 and also makes the screen-based flashlight extremely effective. The display is 1.5 inches, so it's slightly bigger than the latest Garmin displays found on the 47 and 51mm sizes, which are both 1.4 inches. The resolution is 480 by 480, which again is slightly more than the new Garmin's, which come in at 454 by 454, but since it's also a slightly larger display, you can expect similar pixel density and viewability. The display is made of Gorilla Glass, which is about as good as you're going to expect in a mid-tier price point, and it has all of the sensors that you'd expect as well. It has offline maps and navigation, has dual band GPS, and is also dive rated to 45 meters. The GPS is rated to last up to 42 hours in accuracy mode, which is using the dual band connection. You can fine-tune a lot of aspects of the battery usage to tweak battery life up or down, and I found a standard setup that included always on display, checking heart rate every 5 minutes, and an hour of exercise per day lasted me about 9 days. Now, if you turn off always on display and use the watch in a more conservative manner, it is rated for up to 27 days. And all of that you get for a retail price of $289 US. And my initial impressions, I kept getting back to what's the catch? I couldn't find it after a few days, and after close to a month, well, you'll see. Oh, and I did want to correct one thing from the first video where I said the always on display would only display the time and look kind of bland. Someone in the comments let me know that it is possible to change it, and I did find that setting. It's kind of interesting because you can actually select always on display like you would a watch face. It doesn't have to be directly correlated to the watch face you choose, and it could be just completely different, and you could even choose different colors for it. So I'm definitely liking the watch more now that I can see a bit more with the always on display, so thank you to the viewer who let me know to dig in a bit deeper in those settings. Speaking of watch faces, you get quite a few standard on the watch, and even more you could get from Amazfit or third-party providers on their store for free. And you can see they're more refined than what you might find on a Garmin or Coros or Suunto, but that does come at the cost of being less customizable. Most have no options to customize, and the ones that do have a single field that can be swapped around. The complications displayed can be tapped to access the corresponding app or widget. Now the watch itself is touchscreen enabled and has a 4-directional navigation UI, where swiping from the top gets you into the control center with various toggles, swiping from the right gives you apps, swiping from the left gives you your phone notifications, and swiping from the bottom gives you your widget glances. There's also 4 physical buttons that can perform all the needed functions on the watch if you don't want to be using touch display or using gloves. With the top right button pulling up your list of activities, of which there are well over 150, And getting back to the apps, there is a variety of health-based metrics you can measure and explore. There's training metrics on there, as well as just normal utilities like a calendar, weather, to-do app. Phone notifications do include the ability to use your voice to reply to some messaging apps, namely WhatsApp. And after a recent update, there is now also a keyboard that can be pulled up to type out quick replies. Don't think you'd really want to write an essay on here, but it is serviceable when needed. There's also a ChatGPT based assistant built into the watch to control watch functions and query ChatGPT as just a normal AI chatbot as well. Okay, now let's jump into the phone app experience here. The Zepp app, Zepp being the company that owns the Amazfit brand, is your hub for all of your data. On the Home tab, you can show this full list of key metrics and can be customized to show as many or as few as you'd like, and the top graphs can also be customized to show which metrics you would like. You get things that you'd expect here like sleep information, heart rate information, recovery information, training status. For the most part, I found these metrics to pretty closely coincide with what I've gotten from a Garmin Connect app. Now, I've heard from some people that say Amazfit is too generous with their training readiness and sleep score metrics, which I found to be true, but only when I first started using the watch. Once it had a couple weeks of data and started to see just how crappy my sleep can actually be with a newborn in the house, it started to be pretty closely matched with what my Garmin scores were. Like if I take a look at last night when I actually got some decent sleep, Amazfit has me at a 77 score, and if I take a look over at Garmin, it is also 77. And if you take a look at the REM and deep sleep times of each of them, they're not so far off either. So yeah, Amazfit does tend to be a bit kinder with some scoring, but after getting to see some of the highs and lows in your recoveries and performances, I do think it gets honed in pretty accurately, or at least as accurate as the Garmin. Now on the workout tab, you can see your history, any planned workouts with your Zepp Coach, which is similar to Garmin's pre-built workouts if you select a race date and target time. It's nothing too advanced, but it does say it will take your performance into consideration, similar to Garmin's daily suggested workouts, where it can kind of tweak what is suggested to you based on your past performance. You do get a training load here, you get VO2 max, and you can see also there's a couple items marked premium here, and we're going to touch on all that in just a moment. Now the Aura tab is focused completely on sleep and sleep routine, and again, some more of this is premium, and we'll talk about that. Now, finally, is the device tab where you can get new apps, new watch faces, and deal with various device settings. This is also where you would download your new maps. You can select a map you'd want to download and it will sync over onto your watch. And we'll talk about navigation and maps in a moment as well. Okay, so remember I said that there's a ChatGPT function built into the watch? Well, yeah, it's also all over the Zepp app as well. As a matter of fact, it is the basis for the premium app subscriptions. The subscriptions here aren't very expensive. I believe I was offered $20 for the year for the premium workout subscription and $40 for the year for the Aura premium subscription. So here's basically what you get for that. The Zepp app will take all of your aggregated sleep and workout data and generate summarized reports each week and each month. You'll also get the ability to ask what is basically a ChatGPT bot anything about your reports, or just fitness or health questions in general. I did do a trial on both of those services to at least be able to generate one report out on each to show you, and I guess some of this is a nice summary and they do offer actionable advice to improve your scoring, so I wouldn't say it's without value. I think if you have some basic levels of knowledge on healthy habits and exercising, that this is definitely just a form of convenience to have personalized advice given to you instead of needing to search it out. And I think for someone who finds this useful, that the price is reasonable enough. Although I will say I fundamentally dislike the idea of having ongoing costs associated with the use of a product that I've already paid for. In this instance, it isn't too much of a turnoff because there isn't any necessary functionality that is being blocked behind this paywall. And when comparing to other major brands, you are still getting pretty much all the same levels of data access without paying for anything extra. Hey, and really quick, between the testing, writing, editing, there's a lot of work that goes into this video, so the few seconds of support to give a thumbs up and subscribe means a ton to me. The channel is growing and the support that you give me is what fuels the growth. So thank you so much. Moving on to navigation now. This watch can blaze through your downloaded maps, zooming in and out, panning effortlessly. So why is it so much faster than, say, a Garmin would be? Well, the main reason isn't because the watch is more powerful, although it definitely seems that way during day-to-day use, but rather because this is a map image overlaid on your relative position. So basically, this map holds no actual data. This means you can't form routes on the watch to a point of interest. The watch doesn't even recognize points of interest. So is that a big deal? Well, for most scenarios, it won't be. But here is a more edge case scenario where it definitely was. I was recently out backpacking with both my Epics as well as my T-Rex 3, and I did load our intended route on both watches using a GPX file, which was simple enough for both apps. But I typically use that as a fallback because we don't always stick to the initial route that we've planned depending on weather, trail conditions, injuries, or anything else that can happen in the backcountry. Case in point, we were going out and back hitting 3 peaks one day, but climbing some technical terrain, which would definitely ice up and be hard to safely see after the sun started setting, we decided that it was not a good idea to go back down that way. So we changed our route to loop around, take a much longer but easier and less technical trail that we could more safely navigate with our headlamps. Now my Garmin Epics, without doing any preparation ahead of time, could tell me where the trails were, where the lean-tos were, bridges, and any other points of interest, and I could also set up navigation from the watch if I needed. The T-Rex 3, once I got off the planned route, couldn't tell me anything. I could only retrace my route to navigate back to start, although that was precisely what I wanted to avoid in this case. So was that an edge case? I mean, yeah, probably for most people who are going to be using maps for referencing streets or using simple back and start navigation, or just loading in a GPX file to plan a running route and sticking to that. But if this is being marketed as an outdoor adventure watch, this is definitely a noticeable step down from something that has maps with interactive data points. Okay, so speaking of activities, let's hop into the accuracy of the sensors here. This is where Amazfit has fallen short in past years and where you could expect a newer company to struggle, particularly when striving to hit very competitive price points. I tested this watch doing runs, lifts, hikes, and bike rides. I often wore my HRM Pro Plus heart rate strap to get the most accurate data I could to test against, and will note when I was wearing the heart rate strap versus just having my Garmin Epics on my wrist. Those are my two main testing devices. For lifting, I have to say that the rep counting was as accurate as my Garmin, and I really did appreciate their UI where they have the entire rest period presenting a screen where you can edit your last reps and weight instead of Garmin where you have about 5 seconds to let the watch know you intend to enter weight or adjust reps counted.
Okay, so we're going to start with just a quick lift here that I did and just take a look at heart rate. So I'm wearing watches on each wrist here, the purple being the T-Rex 3, the blue being a Garmin Epics. And you can see when the heart rate is changing just a little bit, like at the beginning here, everything's looking pretty good. But as things start to spike, right, as I'm hitting different sets, I kind of spiking up my heart rate. The T-Rex 3 is not really picking up on those. So while the trend is most definitely correct, the T-Rex 3 is supposed to be measuring heart rate as frequently as it can. So this tells me it's just quite not getting some of those spikes and drops. Not fantastic here. Not fantastic. But lifting is one of the more challenging exercise activities to track heart rate because it is spiking up, it is dropping down. You are gripping things tightly in your hands. So let's take a look at something else here. Okay, so moving along, this is heart rate reading from a bike ride I went on, just going around the neighborhood, no big hills or anything like that. You know, I might have slowed down or stopped for some traffic, but that's about it. And if you're looking at our lines here, the green is our T-Rex 3, the purple is our HRM Pro Plus Garmin heart rate strap. The T-Rex 3, again, it's hitting all the right trends, and you could see when things are climbing a lot, yes, it lags behind, but I think that's just using a heart rate strap versus an optical heart rate sensor. It's going to be about that with almost any watch. Now, if we look at some of these, it's looking a lot better. I mean, yeah, again, we have a little bit of lag, but that's about what's expected. I would say this is pretty good compared to a heart rate strap on a bike ride. Let's keep looking here. Okay, if we take a look at the GPS from the bike ride, I mean, GPS accuracy looks about the same. And again, this is a Garmin Epix Gen 2, not the Pro. But I mean, aside from like really zooming in, we are looking pretty accurate here. Looks good. Okay, so we're taking a look at the hike here. This is one hiking activity at 6.5 hours. All I really want to look at here is elevation. And you can see as we start off, they're extremely similar. And as we climb, there is a little bit of discrepancy here. Now, the T-Rex 3 is in blue, the Garmin is in purple. As we get higher and higher, we do have a little bit more discrepancy. We're at the peak. The T-Rex 3 has me at 1,300 meters ascent. The Garmin has me at 1,257, so a 43 meter difference. So I guess we could take a look at the actual elevation of these mountains and see who's right. Let's take a look. Moving along to the GPS track here. Now, again, we're just kind of starting at the trailhead. We're heading up Seymour Mountain and then heading back to our camp. So it's just kind of a straight line here. And if we take a look in, we have blue being the T-Rex 3, purple being the Garmin, and these are really tracking very well. And you can see it all looks good. So right here, I have to say that's user error. Whoops, I think somewhere's right around there. We stopped and I tied my boot or something like that, and I accidentally stopped the T-Rex 3 activity. And by the time I realized it, we were up here. So that's user error. You can't hold that against T-Rex 3. So if we look at the whole rest of it, you know, this is all doubled up because we went up and came back down. I would say this is extremely accurate. This is a fartlek run, so we're doing some intervals, and I am wearing a HRM Pro Plus heart rate strap in this one. So the purple on this one is the heart rate strap. Blue is the T-Rex 3. The heart rate here is looking good. I would say, I mean, especially this is our warm up, right? So it's going to be looking good. Now here you could see, all right, we start doing some intervals, and I guess kind of predictably, the optical heart rate sensor lags behind a heart rate strap. And here you can see there's a little more lag. I mean, here it tracks very well, A little bit of lag, kind of misses things here, misses a bigger drop. But overall, I'd say this is really good still. Again, take a look at the average heart rate down at the bottom here. On the T-Rex 3, we're at 154. On the HRM Pro Plus heart rate strap, we're at 153.6. It is the same. It's within a fraction of a beat per minute. Okay, moving on to cadence. Again, same thing. We're going to be hitting the T-Rex 3 in blue and the HRM Pro Plus with the strap in purple. I mean, it's looking about the same. Again, I would say, actually in this one, like the T-Rex seems like it's maybe picking up on some increases that the strap is not. I mean, overall, this is tracking extremely similar. This looks very good here. Again, like same thing here, where if these little peaks here are accurate, then it's picking up on some peaks that the strap and the watch were not. So overall, I mean, take a look, 85.6, 85.25. And again, the way this is conducted, this is going to be like half of your steps per minute, just so you know, right? So put that at 170 and, 0.2 or whatever, 170.1. Okay, so again, if we take a look at the interval run here, we have the T-Rex 3 in blue, the HRM Pro Plus and Garmin in purple, and we have to be zoomed in pretty high to see any sort of deviance, but I would say overall we're looking pretty good. And you can see I'm hitting this out and back sort of a thing on this road. So we're hitting it a few times. Again, this is the most sharp turn I have, and I try and hit it relatively sharp here. And I would say it's tracking pretty good. And again, I have the Garmin on the right wrist and the T-Rex 3 on the left. So overall, these tracks are looking good.
All right, so let's get into my closing thoughts now, where this watch fits into the landscape and whether it's worth consideration from you. So first off, this watch has a lot going for it. Not just because of its relatively low price point for the features, but standing on its own, it's a very solid experience. I was impressed with how this watch compared to my Garmin, and particularly when I was wearing the heart rate strap. The battery life is good or even great. The UI is smooth, there are plenty of activity profiles to choose from, there are various settings to configure within activities so you can customize your alerts, including routes or whatever else you may need. The watch and the app have sufficient metrics to be used for pretty serious training. Amazfit has quite the lineup of watches, and I think they aren't getting enough attention for what I think are the wrong reasons. For one thing, the parent company is owned by a Chinese corporation. That holds some stigma for some folks, but you know what? Amazfit bends over backwards to go over their data privacy practices, and you can even limit where the data from your workouts gets stored. Also, not many people worry that Coros is also a Chinese company, and they constantly get the time of day from reviewers. They have elite athletes sponsored to wear their watches, and they're mostly seen in a very positive light as a no-nonsense offering for serious athletes. Well, you can say that they make watches that look too much like Apple watches or Garmin's or whatever else. This makes people think that they're cheap knockoffs of these watches, and that does make them seem like they're trying to be a cheaper version of something else instead of trying to create their own branding and identity. And I'll totally give you that on, say, the Amazfit Active, which is the Apple Watch looking model. But on the other hand, how many octagon-shaped watches are there? Their most popular model, the Balance, is circular, and I mean, there's only so many ways you could design a watch. A circle seems like a pretty good one. And finally, the T-Rex 3 in particular debuted right after the Fenix 8 and seemingly is trying to target a very similar audience as an outdoor adventure watch. Again, this makes the watch seem like a cheaper option trying to be a Fenix, but I don't think it's really fair to poke holes in what the Amazfit has to offer by comparing it to a watch that's 4 times as expensive. Instead, take a look at some of the watches that have come out since the T-Rex 3. The Polar Vantage M3 at $400. The Coros Pace Pro at $349, the Suunto Race S at $349. All of these watches have very similar capabilities to the T-Rex 3. They all have OLED screens, they have upgraded processors that make them operate very smoothly, they have dual band GPS, they have route-based navigation and offline maps that are all image-based maps. And although, to my knowledge, the T-Rex 3 is the only dive-rated watch among all those I just mentioned, correct me in the comments if I'm off on that one. So take a look at that field, and suddenly the T-Rex 3 seems to be more among peers of very well-established brands that are very capable performers and good value options for those that are seeking a watch that can do almost everything but don't need the absolute bleeding edge. And you can see it still undercuts all of them price-wise. I think at the end of the day, Amazfit has some compelling offerings, and the T-Rex 3 is definitely one of them. But Amazfit is still newer as a brand, and in a crowded field, they won't be given the time of day by many dedicated athletes until they prove their reliability over the years. People don't go out and buy a handful of watches to use on different days, they make a single choice. And sometimes it's going to be hard to convince someone to choose you when there are established brands that are similar in features for not too much more money. Their recent watches outperformed their early offerings by a large margin, and if they continue on this trajectory, I think that in very short order, they will be so good that they can't be ignored any longer. So do I think the T-Rex 3 is worth your consideration? I think I've really laid out where the watch performs well, where it can be a bit lacking, so I'll leave that up to you. But after almost a month with the watch, I'll say that there is no catch to a very well-spec'd watch at a very competitive price. The accuracy of the sensors are good even if they're not market leading. The phone app experience is good if you look past the premium subscriptions that get marketed to you. The capabilities of the watch almost definitely cover all standard use cases for the sort of people that are buying mid to high range sports watches. Let me know your thoughts, and if you have any further questions about the watch or any experiences of your own to share, please do so in the comment section. Thank you so much for making it through to the end of this review. I appreciate you hanging with me today. If you did make it this far, please be sure to hit that thumbs up and subscribe if you're not already. I've got some great and exciting content I'm working on for the channel, and I don't want you to miss it. I'm Dave, and this is Dave Does Fitness. Have an awesome day, and stay fit. I often wore my HRM Pro Plus heart rate strap to get the most accurate data I could to test against, and I will note when I had a heart rate strap on versus just doing, okay, I'm not going to say strap on.